Welcome to the Throttle Stop Moto Podcast. I am Justin Bethune.
Jeff Griffith.
Matt Welch.
And we have with us today Alan Shirley, trials rider extraordinaire. And I think for a lot of our listeners, I think the question is like, how does this apply to me? Like, why should I be interested in this? And I think that as we go on, you'll kind of get it, because trials is awesome to watch. But I want to at least turn it over to Alan for a second and say, what is trials? Like, introduce me to trials. What's the point?
You know, if I was going to give it one sentence, I would say it's like parkour for motorcycles, but it's more than that. It's a little more nuanced than that. You know, it's really just testing what you and the bike can do, and you're using a really stripped down bike. You've taken off everything that's not being useful. You don't need to sit down because that's not part of it. You're trying to figure out what you and the machine can do. And it's just an obstacle course for motorcycles. Time doesn't matter. It's what can you get up and can you do it prettily? You know, can you do it without putting your feet down?
Does time not matter at all? I thought there was kind of like a time element in case you tie, I guess.
So, long story short, it doesn't, but it does. So at like a local event, the only time constraint you have is the overall time. In the STRA, the local Southeastern series, you have 3.5 hours to finish the whole event. So there's no time in the sections. You can take your time. You want to watch a lot of I'm going to call some people out here, but some of the older guys, they get closer to like, the 3.5 hour mark, and it's like, come on, guys, come on. But at nationals, that's where it becomes a little more critical, and that's where they're going to be timing in the sections.
Yeah.
So every section you get to, you can take your time getting to a section, but when you get in the section, you have a minute and a half to get through it.
And there's some no-stop rule. Sorry, Jeff. There's some no-stop rule.
That has
rules
actually
now,
been
right?
abandoned.
Okay, so they gotten rid of that. Okay.
Thank God, because I think that was kind of the worst thing that ever happened to trials. But
that's the problem with not competing for a couple of years. Isn't it?
It happened to me too. I was watching the World Round, and I think it was last year, and I'm like, that guy stopped. What? And then I looked and I'm like, oh no, and then I looked it up. They got rid of it. They allow backing up now at the World Rounds. I'm like,
wow.
I've been saying for decades, why not? Why not allow backing up? If you've got that skill in your bag, why not?
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool to see that trials is now heading that direction.
So obviously they're trying to popularize it more than it has been in the past. I mean, that's kind of been a hard thing to get over, to get introduced to everybody, at least in the U.S. and in Europe, it's huge, especially Spain.
It is, and I think it. This is just me trying to look at it and try to analyze, because I've been riding for a long time, and I've always been like, why? How do we make it more popular in America? And I think the big limiting factor is Europe. You have these small pieces of property, and a lot of times, the property that's not useful for anything else is great for trials.
Yeah.
And you only need like 3-5 acres, and you can have a trial. But to do an enduro, to do motocross, you need land, and we've got it here. So it's, if you tell a kid, it's like, hey, you can get on this motorcycle and ride in this 1 acre lot, or hey, you can go to Windrock and you can ride literally till you die of old age and never hit the same trail. It, it's a hard sell sometimes, but I think when you put the time to it, it's really worth it.
So I love it. I mean, obviously I love the hair scrambles too, but where a hair scramble's almost violent. Like, I mean, you're just going, 10 tenths from one tree to the next. It doesn't matter how you get there. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't matter how many times your feet hit the ground, whatever.
You can
And
bounce
then
off the trees.
Yeah, I mean, you can just
Bounce off each other.
you can ping pong your way through the woods, and if you get away with it, then you got away with it. On the trials, it's obviously it's more systematic. It's kind of like golf. The point is the point is don't get points. Every time you put your foot down, you dab, you get a point. You collect X amount of points throughout the event, the competition, and the one with, just like golf, with the lowest points wins. There's some variables, but that's kind of the basics of it. And when you're going through a section, and the section might be a 32nd of a mile long, a 64th of a mile long. Like they're very short,
Very short.
A to B, and systematic. I mean, I think the guys that ride trials bikes are very systematic, very
A lot of them are.
Cerebral.
yeah, very focused on
A lot of engineers.
Yeah. And they'll walk the section. That's what it takes. They'll spend 30 minutes walking the section to spend you know,
10 seconds in it.
yeah. So,
I,
um,
I've always I've been morbidly curious. I don't know why we haven't done it yet, but I want to do a survey sometime at a trial, what all the professions are, and I would say overwhelmingly it's got to be at least 50% are engineers.
yeah,
Like it's
definitely.
very a thinking man's game
Yeah.
for
Absolutely.
sure.
And so that kind of brings me to the next thing. Like we talk about, it's a thinking man's game. You talked about earlier, like there's a lot of older riders in this sport,
Hmm.
and obviously we have an audience here, especially on the podcast. The last episode we did was on the R 1300 GS Adventure. Um, like it's hard to bring those people in and kind of like help them understand how trials is not just something that you have to like dive deep into. It's also something you can use to kind of help you develop your skill. So who is trials for?
Everyone, you know, I've literally I used to teach a lot more classes than I do now. But I've had everybody from road bikers, enduro, flat trackers. I had Mike Brown come
Nice.
take a few pointers from me. But
Not a lot of people
um,
could say that.
well, he was almost as good as me as soon as he started. So it was I was just like the biggest thing I gave him was like slow down, slow down.
Yeah.
But literally everybody can get something from it. That's the thing I don't think people realize is that you can literally. It doesn't matter how good you are at that sport. If you come on a trials bike and you give me a weekend, um, it will improve some facet of your riding. You may not see the benefits for a while, but you take those tricks that you learned and you bring them home and you work on them, and it does stuff to your riding. I've had a lot of adventure bike guys come ride with me for 2-3 weeks, and they're like, "Man, like there was this trail that I used to have so much trouble on, and it was easy." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you learned how to work the bike."
It'll help you
So
win the slow race at the bike night.
Yeah,
Yeah. Backing up just a little bit, and we kind of breezed over it. So, your resume. I mean,
yeah.
give us a background. Tell us why you're the right guy to teach somebody to ride a trials bike.
I don't know that I'm necessarily the right, but
Well, I mean,
it's
I've seen you. I've rode with you, and I've seen you coach people. So yeah, I mean, I think you are, or at least one of. But
appreciate it.
tell people why.
So I have taught classes, and um, I think for me, a lot of the guys that started riding trials, they started really, really young, and a lot of them, when they start really young, it's kind of like, well, how'd you do that? Well, I don't know. I've always done that, and I started later, and I didn't have a lot of talent. I did a lot of my progress was from like just hard work and stubbornness and
Crashing stuff.
a lot
I've
of
seen that
crashing.
too.
I feel bad for whoever bought my third, second, third, and fourth bike because those were absolutely destroyed. They got good deals on them, but I don't think it was good enough. But anyway, I put a lot of time to it, and um, I got better. And it's just I've had a good career. It's been fun being able to share that with people. As far as I guess my resume, I didn't start until I was 19.
Oh,
Had never ridden a motorcycle before that, but I was in Florida, found a good deal on a bike, and um, I wired some money to the guy. It was $800. It was my first one, um, and got on it, liked it, and worked hard at it. And in 3 years, I was competing at the nationals and got on a stunt show team that I own now on the Edge Two Wheel Action shows. And it's just been uphill ever since. I've loved it. I've competed in 4 world events. I've ridden on 6 continents. That was a big bucket list item when I finally got that one. That was cool. Competed on every single one of them, and yeah, that's kind of the highs and the lows, I guess, of my career.
Backing up to what we talked about it being good training. Yeah, I mean for sure. I mean I love trials. Always have. There's a I've got a trials bicycle in my office, that I'll ride around the showroom from time to time and hop around, and it transfers to everything. It transfers to the adventure bikes, to the dirt bikes. You just they're not fun to. I think some of the problem here is they're not fun to trail ride. You need a place like your property, or Trials Training Center or somewhere like that for to take full advantage of them and use them for. I mean, they hold 8/10 of a gallon of fuel, so you're not going to go far on on a trail ride. The fenders are what are they,
an inch,
half an
two.
inch from
They
the
they
tire.
can pack
They will
completely
pack
full of
up. Yeah,
mud.
if it's muddy, they'll pack up, and the
I've done
front
it.
tire just slides. So
Ejectocito
right,
cuz.
yeah, yeah. It's not a dirt bike. And when you buy them, you've got to, you know, you can't look at it like a dirt bike. It's something completely different with a different
And a
purpose.
lot of people who have ridden dirt bikes their whole lives end up on trials bikes later in life. And it's because it's a lower impact sport. It's something that you're not, if you crash, you're not going 40 miles an hour.
Injuries are so rare. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I've seen 80-year-old men that ride trials and they hit the ground. You're like, oh my God, because it's like this guy's 80 and, he gets up, he looks a little confused and you help me start my bike, son? It's a little flooded. Yeah, yeah. Come on. Do you want to go back to pitch? No, I got a race to finish. Kind of going back to what you're saying. I think the thing with trials that I think is the biggest, like, to the entry level rider is, Charlie Roberts told me this. He was the guy that used to manage the TTC for like 30 years. The one thing that he always said, and I'm like, man, that makes so much sense. The reason I think doesn't appeal to some people is you can get on a motocross bike or a GP bike or something, and the day you get on it, you feel like you're going fast.
Yep.
You feel it. And on a trials bike, it's at least several months before, like, you feel like you're even able to comfortably ride the thing, and it's probably a year or 2 before you feel like you're doing something.
It's very different.
Like, you watch Tony Bow or one of the world pro guys, and you're like, "Oh, man," and like I say, it takes a while before you feel like you're really doing something.
Well,
It's
without it,
worth it.
for sure, and without a seat, you have to have good throttle and clutch control, or you just end up off the back of the thing. And the further back you get when you whiskey throttle it, like
The worse it gets.
yeah, it escalates quickly because there's no seat to sit on and kind of stabilize yourself to get back off the throttle. So yeah, and if the clutch lever is already too far away from you to get a hold of, you can't fix it.
That's
So
I've actually seen one of these become a boomerang before. It was the most impressive thing, like, just it's amazing what a 300 can do when it's wide open and it hits that back tire.
yeah,
We were talking about the cross training aspects of it, and I always characterize like you ever talk about like street racing and people who are really into sport bike racing. You Flat track is often a great place for them to go.
Yeah.
And it teaches them to operate without traction and how to produce lack of traction if in case you need to engage in the slide. But with trials, it's kind of the opposite of that, and it's
Finding traction.
finding traction, it's using traction, it's creating traction, where you need to. And I think that the seeming lack of traction is an intimidation factor for a lot of people going off road. I mean, Justin, you talked about it before with the multistrada.
Yeah.
I think that trials could greatly benefit you in
Yep.
learning how to ride off road. And we've done women's
Oh,
training
man.
classes at Alan's property for off road riding, and having that that trials focus kind of helps you understand how dirt works underneath the tire. But also wanted to mention you have the Chattanooga Trials Club.
Yes. I don't have it. I'm part of it,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're local here. We on any given week, we've probably got 6 to a dozen people, and we ride at my house on Thursday nights. We also do events, from time to time, but the big thing is, like, we just come over Thursday night and we ride at my house. This time of year, it gets dark early. One of our members, he tore down a ball field, and so he's got 50 of these giant halogen lights that we've started putting up. We've only got 3 up, and we've already got an acre lit. So this time of year, we're riding we call it the arena because it's just this spot where we've got like a bunch of obstacles kind of between 2 hills, and it's good for spectating. Like, if you don't want to ride, come watch. But we've also got our club. A few years ago, we made enough money off our events. We bought a bike for the club, and there's no discrimination. Anybody can come out and try it. We want you to come use it, and it kind of gives you a feel for the event. And it's kind of like you always think about my Grand Canyon trip, and it's like, they give you that old horse. It's like, yeah, that one that there's no chance that thing's gonna run on you. That's what this bike is.
Yeah.
It's an adult 80, so it has no power. It can still hurt you, but it's not gonna, like, absolutely ruin your life like one of these will, like
Yeah, most
mine
of these
would.
are 250s or 300s. Like that's a big jump.
Eh, Especially on such a little package.
Yeah.
People like, oh, I ride a 300 enduro. It's like this is different. I promise, dude.
So, with that being said, can you explain to those of us who know nothing about trials, like what is a trials bike? Like, what makes it different? Like, how's it set up?
The biggest analogy I can give is like, a sports car or a rock crawler. you're stripping down everything you don't need, and it's only the essentials. And you can see we have the dip in the frame, and the reason for that, not only to keep the center of gravity lower, but there's a lot of moves you do where you need to get your body down and into the bike, like hill climbs. You'll see the bottom of my pants will be right here above the airbox. Like, you really get into it, lower that center of gravity, but also working the suspension. The suspension is a lot different than like an enduro bike where you don't want rebound on enduros. You get it on these, and that's so you can hop, so you can get you can compress the forks, and you can actually jump these things up onto obstacles. Um, so they're really just, like I said, they're a rock crawler for the motorcycle world.
So how is like the engine set up and power and weight and all that stuff?
It's a lot more low end. You know, a gas, for instance. Some of the bikes are different, but a gas, for instance, I know those pretty well. They have 6-speed transmissions in them, but sixth gear. I don't know that I've ever actually tried to top one of these out, and I've never been clocked, but it's probably what, maybe 30 or 40,
It's not
maybe.
it's not that fast.
Yeah.
And the only reason it's there is the transfer
Trail gears.
sections
Yeah.
in
Get
Europe
between
mainly.
sections.
Yeah.
Well, and you're talking about a 300 with less than 20 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's not about the horsepower; it's about the torque.
And it's the engine inertia and just the kinetic energy, I guess, that the engine will build. So you'll see, especially Alan, not so much me, but Alan will be at the bottom of a wall or some sort of obstacle where he needs to go up and has no run in, no distance
Need
to
that power.
so clutch in second or third gear, turn the motor up, let it build that energy, and then just turn loose of the clutch and you kind of turn loose the clutch and then immediately get control of the clutch back to get the bike to go as much up as forward
Mhm.
all at the same time, and that's just from reciprocating weight in the engine that we don't have in the dirt bikes.
So if it's more about instant torque, is this somewhere where an electric bike would be better or the same, worse?
They're getting there. I don't know that they're there yet, and that may just be an Alan Shirley opinion. Actually, one of my best friends from South Africa, he has won, I think it was 2 national championships in South Africa on an e-bike. But at the world level, they're still they have an e-bike world championship in addition to the regular. They don't ride the same class, but they ride a level lower than the top level pros. Eh, Part of it's because the e-bike classes don't get the money, they don't get the riders that the top level does. But me personally, I don't think the bikes are quite here. But they're getting there. It's amazing. When e-bikes first came out, they didn't have clutches on them, and
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question.
they were like a light switch. I got on the first Osset, I think, in America, and the thing, a lot of us were struggling. Of course, Pat Smodgy's our national champion. He gets on it and immediately just takes to it like nothing. But the rest of us were like, "How do you make this work?" But like I
Yeah,
said,
where clutch control is such a big part of how you train and what you're trying to master. Like they
they're
take it away completely. That's a completely different thing.
Well, and then taking the rear brake
Yeah,
away from you on the foot, it's still on the handlebars, but like I drag the rear brake on everything, dirt bikes,
yeah.
the
GSAs,
electric motions have the foot brakes
yeah,
now.
and a clutch, right,
Hmm.
with a gearbox.
That's I rode Brent's, and to me, and probably if I wrote it, it would be closer. But even he, I don't know if I should say this on air if he's watching, but like he admitted to me, he's like, it is fantastic for everything. He's like, the big stuff, it doesn't feel quite where the bike, and he's been riding longer than I have. He's been riding for 40 years, but he's like the big stuff just doesn't feel quite there yet. He's like, I just can't exactly explain it, but I mean, he still kicked my butt on one, so
And
they're
we've talked
they're
about it,
there.
yeah, and we've talked about it a lot, not just in the trials world, but motorcycles in general. That is the future, like it or not.
So
That's where it's going, and they'll get the charge time and the run time, figured out where they're more.
already better. I mean, at the first e-bike I saw at a national, the guy had to carry batteries with him,
Yep.
on the loop. And Brent, I think he did 2 laps at the South Africa National, and it was like, I think it was like a 10-mile loop, and he did 2 laps before and I had to fill up every loop. So it's like, the longevity's there for trials. It's just You
You
know,
know, I did 24-hour Prairie Mountain
yeah,
2 years ago, and one of the guys on the team decided to bring his old Alta, and because you're only doing, you know, a couple of laps at a time, so he had, and then there was 5 other people in between his stints,
yeah,
so he had
That's a
plenty of time.
brand I haven't heard of in a while.
They're great, and you know the Starks are good.
yeah,
The
instant.
Yeah, so it's coming. Yeah, no
You're
doubt.
talking about clutch control. You're also talking about reciprocating mass as far as the just keeping that engine momentum up while you're engaging the clutch. You also use that in terms of balancing the bike.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of it that you take away whenever you're going electric.
Yeah,
Um, but who was the gas guy? Obviously, gas has been developing an electric trials bike and have had some success with it so far. Who was the guy who recently was like who won something big on the gas? I can't remember. It may have been,
um,
like, even
in
6 months
trials.
ago, yeah.
Was it Hagasandre? I think he's riding the e-bikes in the
Yeah.
worlds now. It might have been the e-bike world championship. I don't pay as much attention
Either
to
way,
e-bikes.
gas has been developing something, and it's had some success. We'll see if and when that comes to market. I think that there's 2 things that you have to think about in there. Even if it's better, does the market sustain it, whenever it is finally released? And I think that there's a lot of, like, question there.
I think it's like anything. I think it's going to be the younger generation that's going to
Oh,
take
yeah.
it up because, like, you got the old two smoke guys like me that just they want everything to be two stroke. It's like I would love it if they'd start putting two strokes in cars. Like I'd like my truck to be a two stroke diesel. Like, why can't we bring that back? But you watch the kids. Like I was talking with y'all about it earlier. When you see one of these tiny little Ossets here, like it's changed the game because like when I was first starting trials, the little kids' bikes were still gas,
Yeah.
and the kids had to be 7, 8, 9 years old. You see kids starting as soon as they can walk now. I mean, we're talking like 3-year-olds, and
Yeah.
I'm very excited. I've already seen a little bit of it, but I'm really excited to see where some of these kids that started 10 years ago that are 3 that are now 13,
And it is
how far they're gonna
adorable.
go. Yeah,
Like,
it
you
is.
you see these kids get on this, and, there's a little thing that you shouldn't even be riding a bicycle, and they're riding this, and often before they rode a bicycle.
It's easier,
Yeah, they're
you
going
know?
from a Strider bike straight to that.
Yeah.
Well, and like we've seen it on with some of the E2s, threes, and fives, on the dirt bikes
Uh,
where the kids are hesitant to get on a 65, which is the next step after a 65 cc two-stroke gas bike,
Mhm.
combustion bike after the E5 electric bike. So once there's a 65 equivalent that's electric, and then an 85 equivalent that's electric, and so on and so forth, now the conversation, like, we're not having this conversation anymore about, what is the take rate, because it's just a natural
yeah,
progression, I think. You start on electric and you continue on electric because they're available now.
You can always,
um,
you don't have to get a new bike necessarily. You can turn that power up a little bit
yeah,
or turn it down. That's
yeah,
the wild thing about they have that little box there and you just turn that knob a little bit.
yeah, you can I mean, you can turn the thing down to where it barely moves fast enough to balance.
Yeah.
yeah.
And kids are all
Dad
about
can walk beside
technology,
it,
so
mom
like
can walk
they
beside it,
they
whatever.
want everything electric.
Yeah.
It's like kids now, they're like, "Oh, Tesla, Rivian," like all they care about is electric cars.
Getting someone on it this young only helps the sport.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, we're talking 15 years down the road when we're talking about someone riding this right now, but those people are eventually going to become riders who they may branch off into another avenue of riding, but they're going to be riding something. Um, and we talk about a lot of like so gas obviously when Pierre took over, they put gas dealers, whether it was enduro or trials, they're all in the same dealership, right?
Yeah.
We had to get 40 bikes originally to be a gas dealer, and we had 8 of those had to be trials bikes. So we had to commit, like we really had to be all in if we wanted to sell trials.
And I don't know if there's 8 brand new gases in the Southeast right now.
Yeah.
That's
And so Matt really got into it. Matt really started going to the events, participating,
good.
and like coming to the Chattanooga Trials Club meetings Thursday nights.
Yes, sir.
Um, and so we did a lot to try to help in our community, right? Like trying to help the sport locally. Some of that we could take a little bit of credit for, but really the sport's been growing on its own. We got to a point where we were selling those trials bikes so well that we were taking them from dealers in
I
Florida
remember that.
and bringing them up here. Ironically, some of those went back to Florida.
So we sold them right back into Florida. Yeah.
But it really takes dealer support. Um,
1000%.
and that's something that I think a lot of the trials community does lack, because there's a lot of different like brands that, there may be a dealer, but sometimes there's just not a dealer at all. Because there's a lot of small brands involved, but this kind of helps because we've been involved and been able to, support the people who are doing it locally.
Well, and I swear they didn't pay me to say this, but I've never seen a dealer like Pandora. Like they're so quick to want to help and show up. And Matt, I'll float an idea to him like about an event or something that we'll do, or like we had our southeastern banquet at my house one time, and we were going to cater food and everything like that. And Matt's like, "You want us to pay for it?" And I'm like, "I ain't gonna say no." Like, yeah. And then I was like, "Man, that does not get better than this dealership."
Well, and I mean, the dealer needs to support, the community, because the community has to support the dealer. Like it's
Revolving door.
yeah, it's a two-way street, and we need trials riders, and we need GSA riders, and we need multi-strata. Like we need everybody. Just like I hope that they need us. As far as the trials bikes go, like I think it's a great training tool, and I think
Definitely.
some of the reason why the take rate is low on the trials bikes is once you can operate it at 50%, that next 50%
That's the hard
is
part.
really, really hard.
You gotta put time to it.
Right. And it's a full commitment. And if you're using it as a training tool, beyond just learning to ride a motorcycle well, you're using it to get good at hard enduros or whatever, you're splitting time between actually riding your hard enduro bike and the trials bike, and people tend to gravitate towards the hard enduro.
Sure.
So from that perspective, what really needs to happen is we need to build the trials community with its focus on actually trials riding, not on training.
Yeah.
The training's great, and there's nothing in the world that teaches you better clutch and throttle control than a trials bike.
It's a really good bait and switch.
Yeah.
Like, I want to bring you in for the training. Like, I want you
Yeah.
to come in for that reason, but whenever you get in, I want you to stay here.
I've had that happen a lot. We've had people that come in for like cross training, especially older guys. I think they get in, and they think, oh, I'm starting to get older. I'm starting to slow down. Maybe I can pick up some skills. And then they get in and they're like, hey, this hurts a lot less.
This is home.
I don't, I'm not going fast, but it's still challenging. It's rewarding. It's rewarding as all get out when you know, hit a big obstacle that you've been trying for weeks and you finally get up it clean. You're like, oh my God, that
Yeah.
feeling doesn't get much better.
And big obstacles relevant to your skill set, your current skill set,
Absolutely.
right? So yeah, I mean, just cleaning a section that you've, that I don't know. I come out there on Thursday nights, or when you're giving me a hard time about this, I know, but
He doesn't
when
come Thursday nights.
when I used to come out there, and ride a lot, just getting through a section clean finally without putting your foot on the ground, after 3 weeks of trying, it's hugely rewarding. And then you turn around and ride the section backwards,
Mhm.
and you suck just as bad as you ever did,
I've
and you just start over at zero.
I've been
So
riding my property 20 years, and I still, there'll be lines that I've been working on for 2 years, and I'll get it one night, and I'll be like, "Oh my god, I've got it now." And then you come back like, and you cannot duplicate,
yeah, yeah,
But at the
Especially not
same
the
time
competition.
yeah, oh,
yeah.
definitely
When
not.
it really
You
matters.
lose about
Yeah.
10-15% of your ability at competitions.
Yeah. But speaking of like growing, supporting the community, I think that's a good segue into what we're talking about doing in Chickamauga,
Yes. I'm excited about this.
and how all that's been growing.
So yeah, I mean, not to let the cat out of the bag too soon, because nothing is
Nothing official.
official or. I mean, it's we're dealing with city of Chickamauga, or not just Chickamauga, but government in general, and it's hard to get things like this going, especially motorized stuff.
If we get more support,
Yes.
Yeah. But we're working in the direction for the last 2 years
Yeah.
probably. We've kind of worked hand in hand with City of Chickamauga on a few projects and some events and things like that. Alan came down to the 4th of July and set up the On the Edge equipment last year, and put on a show. The plan is to do that again this year, but hopefully this year, if not this year, the next year there will be a trials event in downtown Chickamauga.
Nice.
Particulars aren't worked out yet, but I mean, just to
The fact
be able
it's
to
even on the books
do
is
that,
awesome.
yeah, on government property is huge, and the biggest reason why is the trial side of it, and it's not hard on. We're going to do it on a hillside down there, and really all that when the trials event is over, they're going to have some nice trails to use for hiking
whatever.
or pedaling or whatever they want to do, because the trials bikes don't tear up the ground like a dirt bike will.
Right.
You run a hair scramble course on something, and it takes 2 years for it to heal.
Knee-deep ruts.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of which, how loud are these things?
They're actually significantly quieter, especially like
Yeah.
for the average rider.
Right.
Like the you will hear the top riders because they're on the pipe a lot. When you're doing there's a move called a splatter. He talked about it earlier, where you're dumping the throttle and popping the clutch, and that you'll hear the pipe, but it's still even at full rev, it's not as loud as probably half throttle on an enduro.
And it
bike.
doesn't carry like the 4-stroke.
Mm-mm.
So you're not going to get a lot of
dirt bikes.
complaints doing it in town.
Yeah.
And we've probably talked about this, but the average rider at a local event is probably in his 50s or 60s.
Right.
He's not on the pipe.
Yeah.
He's riding around maybe 1,000, 2,000 RPMs just putting around. So it is, as far as, you look at my property as a prime example. I'm in the middle of, I've got subdivisions on all sides. I mean, I got this little 25-acre paradise, but we don't really get a lot of complaints. Every now you get that, you always are going to get that one neighbor.
Yeah.
But they've never stopped us. They've never, the county's never given us problems over it, and we're also respectful. We try to make it. We try to be good stewards for the sport. We always try to be respectful, and
You're not out there riding 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and trying to make as much noise as possible, obviously. And so, like you're saying, it's not going to cause any noise pollution. It's not going to tear up a trail, like you're saying. It may help beat in a trail, but it's not going to cause ruts. And it really comes down to, like we were talking about earlier, we're about creating traction, not not spinning. You're not spinning a tire out there, creating ruts. And also, the tires themselves are designed to create traction. They're wide. They have a nice pad to them. It's not going to dig in like a motocross tire would.
right.
Yeah, I mean, you run like 4, 6 psi on the rear tire, and just to get it to flatten out and articulate to if it's a rock, you want the tire to articulate to the rock, just like a rock crawler, like um, and it's not motor wicked up and on and off the clutch with the rear tire spooled up out of corners and things like that. It's a lot more controlled, a lot more systematic than that. So it it packs the dirt, but it doesn't dig trenches.
We've got sections at my house that are 20 years old. We've been using them for 2 decades, and other than the fact that it's nice and clean between the trees, when fall comes and the leaves hit the ground, you can't tell that we've ever ridden there. It's like, and I think that's another beauty of the sport, is it's very low impact.
And if you left it alone for probably 6 months, if you didn't ride those sections for 6 months, the section basically wouldn't be there anymore.
That's it.
Yeah.
It'd grow back, especially springtime. We have to fight that sometimes.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. I remember being out there, cutting everything
Yep.
back and riding stuff in for events and things like that. So yeah, it's easy on the environment. Like, and I guess why this is important. One, doing it on government property, they don't want the place tore up. They don't want erosion
or the noise.
or the noise. But then beyond that, if you've got an acre
All you need.
backyard, you're not going to. We're doing it in the shop this week, by the way. And, yeah.
You brought a good point there. When I lived in Atlanta, I had a house and I had 3/4 of an acre, and I had 3 tractor tires. And, I at that point, I was still going to the nationals, going to the world events and stuff, and so it was like I had to practice, but there was nowhere around me to ride. And I put 3 tires in my yard, and, you know, there were a lot of skills I was not honing in. I wasn't doing rocky sections, I wasn't doing hill climbs, but those 3 tires, I could hone my skills. I could keep my throttle and my clutch control, because I feel it if I'm off the bike for a week. It feels a little just a little bit off. I get it back quick, but like, when I was really chasing it, it's like you really need to be doing 3, 4 days a week, and I couldn't. I could only do the weekends. So
Yeah.
that's the difference. Is trials. You don't need, like I was saying, you don't need a wind rock. You don't need 73,000 acres. If you have a log in your backyard, you can have a blast.
And I mean, you can wear yourself out, never,
Yeah.
in your garage and never start the motor.
Yeah.
Just sitting there static balancing the thing and working on that, getting your shoulder against the wall and working your way up to not having your shoulder against the wall and balancing the bike.
We do that in here a lot. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I
we'll just play around and like so. There's I got behind him the other day and like held his tire while he couldn't see me.
I felt really good about
He
myself.
felt
then.
really great.
Dang, I'm on it
Yeah,
today.
I'm
But
feeling
then,
really good at this.
just practicing static balancing here, he's gotten to where he could do it no hands and just stay there.
Yeah.
I can take my hands off and like kind of
Fall
stay
down.
there a little while. I got a few seconds on me. But you could really gain a just balance skill. I mean, it's there's a lot of different ways to go.
There's something in it for everyone. I don't think there's anybody that could not benefit from trials.
So like someone who's coming in totally fresh, how do you get involved?
You mean as far as me or as far as them? Like,
As far as me, I have never
Okay.
ridden a Charles bike in my life. I have, but
I have never ridden
he's
a
never ridden a Charles bike in his
Yeah.
life.
come on down, sir.
How does he get involved?
So, the easiest way, and I know this is going on YouTube, so it's going across the country, is find you a local club. There's tons of them. I can't remember the website name off the top of my head, but if you Google it, there's actually a website that's got a list of all the clubs in the country. Um, just reach out to one of them. I have yet to go to a club that isn't just awesome.
out.
You just crashed the thing.
I, I've I've yet to go to a club that wasn't just absolutely awesome and welcoming, and that
He did just crash.
He just
Uh,
ate it.
y'all missed that.
Why
out.
did we not have that on camera?
I wish.
Somebody go check on him.
Love it.
Chris is following him with a camera. Maybe we'll have some B-roll of it.
Yeah.
Thursday night, come see me.
So y'all are probably seeing the aftermath of that right now.
Sorry.
no,
Charles, around the nation.
Where were we?
talking about getting you into trials.
There we go.
No, there isn't. I literally, I haven't. There hasn't been a club in the world that I haven't been to that isn't welcoming. That's what I love about the sport is the people are awesome. Any sport's going to have that occasional person that's just kind of like, that guy's a jerk. But I would say in trials, they're a lot fewer and further between. The first time I traveled internationally to compete was Australia, and I didn't know anybody there. And there was a family. I'll shout out to the Wagers if y'all watch this, but they literally, I showed up and I was 24 years old. I couldn't rent a truck down there because it was too expensive. So I had a hatchback car. I'm pulling pieces of my bike out and putting it together. And the dad's like, "Hi, mate, where you staying tonight?" And I was like, and I pointed to that little hatchback. He's like, "The heck you gonna sleep in there?" And I'm like, just gonna curl up in a ball." And he's like, "Yeah, come on." And he brought me in his house. And he let me stay with him for a week because he had this awesome place to ride. And
Awesome.
but it's like that everywhere. I don't think you're gonna find very many people in the trials community that don't want to help you. If you just know a friend that's got a trials bike and he rides in his local cub, talk to that guy. Be like, "Hey, how do I get in?" And you honestly, the way trials is set up, the way we do our local series, at least, I can't speak for the world, but the STRA, if you come to an event and you've ridden a motorcycle once and not died, you can do the competition. Our novice class,
I'm barely there.
our novice class, if you can operate a clutch, if you can stand on the trials bike, you can ride our novice class. It's designed for first, second, third time riding. Most people they start in the novice and they don't even get halfway through the season and they move up a class because it's like, oh, I got this now.
Yeah, the novice class wouldn't be. It's not much worse than rolling through the showroom
Right.
and having to make some tight turns. No, really no obstacles.
None.
Maybe a small log or a small rock, but I mean it is definitely focused on getting people into the sport.
Learning the rules.
Yeah, and that that's one of the tough things for me coming from racing hare scrambles is you've got uh, basically cards
Yeah.
gates that you have to piece of paper, if you will, that you have to go through, and like I may go through the same gate as Alan here, and then 20 feet later, not. I may deviate from that because we run race, compete in different classes. But no, I mean, I think motorcycling in general, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire and barely scraping by with some junky motorcycle that you've pieced together. Like it brings people together. It puts people on common ground, which is what I love about motorcycles as a whole. And then the trials bikes, the trials competitions, even more so. Everybody's super welcoming. It's not. Nobody's really trying to hide anything. Nobody, you know, um, nobody's sticking the seat on the bike if they had a seat to hide the ECU that they've got that they think is making them better than you, or whatever, right? Everybody's, come on over, they want to help. You walk around, whatever price you're running, what tire you're running, everybody, you know, shares the information.
Probably one of those things like skateboarding, to where like you're doing obstacles and tricks. And so like if there's something that you haven't done and somebody else is trying to get it, like once they get it, you know that you're going to be like,
Yeah.
you get that mentality. And so
Possible.
you probably push each other even though you're competing against each
I
other.
always compare it to like the running, bicycling, triathlon community. Like it's always like you're competing against yourself.
Yeah,
And really it's
Truly.
about your personal
Yes.
development. I know coming into trials, I'm not going to get out there and win the sportsman class. Like I'm just not going to do it. So I need to start with novice and I'm just going to continuously grow and develop my skill and not worry about, what everyone else is doing. If I beat myself, I've won that day.
Like when I was coming up through the ranks, it's kind of funny. I was winning a lot in the lower classes, and then it's kind of one of those when I moved up into the upper classes. Like at the local, it was the champ class. When I moved up, we had Alex Niederer in there, who at one time, and don't shoot me if I get this wrong, Alex, but I know he made it into the top 4. I think he made it into the top 3 one year. But anyway, phenomenal rider.
Yep.
He's been riding since he was like 9, and it's like there's almost no amount of training I can do to make up for that. I'd already won the expert class, and so it's like I need to ride the champ. I want to ride the champ, but I also went in there knowing I'm never going to win. So the mentality was like, I need to ride better than I rode yesterday. And there's been a couple times where I had some good rides and I got close to him, and that was a good feeling. And it's like, oh, because you've got a measuring stick you can measure against. Like, how close did I get to that guy?
So let's pretend that I show up Thursday and
Yes.
ride with you guys Saturday on that Thursday night and, kind of get to where I can develop some skill and I want to compete. Um, there are opportunities for that are quickly coming up.
Yes.
By the time this airs, we'll have about a month to prepare.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we got on April 19th, you have the vintage trial going on. That's the ARMA
Yep.
Regional Southeast Vintage Trials. They're going to call it Top of the Rock.
Yep.
That's on Alan Shirley. Sorry, not Alan Shirley's, but it's on Seth Cathy's property called Acres Above on Lookout Mountain.
Very
Um,
close.
they did a recap video of that, if you wanted to check that out, that was really cool and also really beautiful. Like it was a really beautiful
Beautiful
place
spot.
to ride. But check out Dax Moto 360. That's his YouTube channel. DAX Moto 360. And then same location,
Mm-hmm.
September 6th and 7th.
Yes.
You have an opportunity to go and do the STRA trial.
Yes.
And
Modern bikes.
yeah, so we get the modern bikes out there.
This is
There goes
awesome.
Justin again. But he's a little more skilled.
I didn't hit
You
him.
didn't wreck like Hunter did.
Must have been on
Um,
trials bike practicing a little bit.
But yeah, so you're gonna have an opportunity September 6th and 7th up there, same location. Do we have anything going on at your property at the Alan Shirley International Pavilion?
No official events this year. I purposely stayed away from events this year. One, because they were doing the Lookout Mountain Trial, and I was like, We don't need 2 events in Chattanooga
Yeah.
in this year that are part of the SGRA series." But the other was, I as soon as they give us the green light on this Chickamauga Trial, I know we're going to have a lot of work because those hills they're pretty woolly, and so I'm hoping, if they hear this, like, "Hey, it'd be great if we could get out there before spring, before everything grows up."
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of my intention with that. But no events per se, but we'll be riding there every Thursday. We always do, and we usually do some kind of summer event. we used to make it an official event. Me and Matt have different Matt Enos. We've been talking about. Um, we used to do an event every summer, and the numbers just haven't been as great in the last couple years. So we're like, let's just do a fun event. We're not going to throw up ribbon. We're not going to throw up markers. We'll probably just have a bunch of folks together. We'll grill out. We ride late at night in the summertime because it's hot, and we've got lights, so we can ride anytime
Yeah.
at my place.
And so you mentioned earlier, we were kind of talking about this. You have that Thursday night thing that you have going on every single Thursday night on your property. Um, you have the 80 there that you can
Yes,
kind of train people on,
absolutely.
and this is free training
Free.
and the idea is to get you out there and get you on the bike. So hopefully that the sport grows
Yes.
and you get more people to participate in the events. Um, but you said not to just show up. Is there a way that they can contact you ahead of time and let you know that they're coming?
Yes, definitely. The Chattanooga Trials Club has a Facebook page. Just get on Facebook and look for that. Um, and yeah, just reach out to us. Maybe make a post on there or PM me. You can find me on there. And yeah, we want y'all to come ride with us. That's the whole goal. We started this thing. There was about three of us, sometimes four if Matt ever showed up, whenever he graced us with his presence, but but now we're getting 10 to 12 on Thursday nights. It's growing and I'm excited about that. Most nights we grill out, so we might feed y'all if y'all come.
Wow.
So
And it's a ton of fun, with a lot of support. Everybody's willing to help. We talked about it earlier, but everybody's willing to help. Everybody's willing to coach. Everybody's willing to, you know, uh, give pointers to get through a section, and it doesn't matter if you're just starting or you've been doing it for forever. So, something I did want to talk about before we got done, Ironman.
oh
A few months ago,
Oof.
you made the terrible decision. Now,
I agree, it
we
was terrible.
we love misery, both of us. So it doesn't
Sadist,
surprise me
apparently.
that you decided to do that. But kind of funny story, and I'll let you pick it up. But you told me that so they canceled the swim.
Yeah, was not happy about that.
So it rained, and I think the same thing happened the year before, where it rained. The E. coli count, counts for parts per million, whatever, get super high in the river. The river's running really fast, so they scrub the swim. Well, Alan has practiced. He's been practicing training for months and months and months and months, and we talked about how trials riders are wired. And this is a good example of them being wired that way. He gets up with a buddy of yours, I don't know his name, and goes to Chickamauga Dam. So they scrubbed the swim. Ironman decided no swim. They're going to start like a TT time trial type start on the bike leg, no swim. And this happened to my wife Carla a few years ago when she qualified for Kona. She didn't. They scrubbed the swim that year as well. But so y'all get up, you and your buddy get up, go to the dam. I'm guessing 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning because
That's
the
about right.
Ironman starts at. I mean, it's
7.
first light as soon as the Coast Guard gives the green light that there's enough ambient light to put swimmers in the water. That's what they do. Obviously, there's no swim, so at first light they sent you out on the bicycles.
Mhm.
So they get up right off the rip and go to the dam and get their swim in,
Yep.
and then load up and go downtown to start the bike lane. Didn't have to, but for some reason wanted to. I don't.
Well,
He wanted to know how he was going to perform.
That's
And
it.
I get it. You do all that training, and
That's
and you're
Probably
not
had
gonna
a
miss
time
those
goal set
swim
for
legs.
yourself. And
I
yep.
didn't train for 6 months to do a duathlon. I
Yeah,
wanted to
me
do a
too.
Well,
triathlon.
I guarantee you, his swim was slower in the lake than it would have been in the river.
Yes.
It was probably, I'm guessing, an
was-
hour and a half swim in the lake, and it would have been a 40. You probably could have cut it in half in the river that day
It's-
because of the flow rate of the water. But
I saw the
uh,
swim times the last year was like 45 minutes or something. Like the slow ones were like,
right,
and I was looking at that, and it took me a while to figure out that it was the river. But I was looking at those times, and I'm like, I'm swimming at the pool, and it's taking me like an hour and a half, sometimes close to 2 hours to get that 2.5
right,
miles.
yep.
Like, how are they doing that fast? Am I that inadequate? And then I like looked at the location. I'm like, Oh, that's below the dam?
Yeah, you could have
Oh,
you could have
yeah.
Yeah, you
floated
can
it.
actually, and that's why a lot of the triathletes love the
Don't
Chattanooga
do it 'cause the
race.
swim's nothing.
Yeah, the swim's really fast.
Shouldn't say nothing. It's still
Yeah,
2.5
it's still
miles.
2.5 miles, and then what 100? It's a long
116 bike.
long bike too. So, yeah, it's 116 instead of 112.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, I mean that's why a lot of triathletes come from all over the country, world even, to do the Chattanooga race is because the swim's really fast. Like they can
The
PR.
number one ranked swim.
Yeah,
Favorite swim I think
yeah.
I saw on the website.
But the course was
Like an
when it
all
went.
downhill run.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, like until you've done one, you can't like. It's hard to convey how
comprehend it.
bad it sucks. But try,
Yeah. Um,
or do you even want to remember? Yeah, maybe you don't even want to talk about it.
it was kind of one of those, even before the race even started, I kept getting all of these losses. I was struggling through. I've kind of been, even now, I'm kind of struggling through it. I've been having trouble with an Achilles, and it's like it limited how much I could run in training. Um, so that was a gut punch. And then, you know, they got rid of the swim, and this was like 3 days prior. But even before that, they're like, okay, we're changing the bike course. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And the bike course, I was really looking forward to it because it's supposed to like go down into Walker County. It's supposed to be real pretty, real remote, isolated roads, which is what I was training. I was riding in the Chickamauga battlefield, so I was like, I didn't use headphones because I'm like, they won't let you do that in the Ironman. So I was like trying to prepare for that mental of just being quiet with yourself. But where I was doing it was nice. You're in the woods, like a Chickamauga battlefield has like no traffic, kind of like what I was expecting those roads to be like. And they're like, oh no, we're gonna put it on 27 now. I'm like, what? That road is insane. Like, how is this gonna work? Oh yeah, we're gonna shut down one lane and y'all have the other lane. So there's gonna be traffic beside us the whole time. And I mean, they didn't slow down at all. In fact, I think they sped up because they were angry with the
Mhm.
Yeah,
traffic,
losing a lane. Yeah,
And so trucks are passing you doing like 60, and you're trying to focus. And um
You getting drafted and
there was a guy that got drafted into one
buffeted.
of the
Yeah.
trucks. It didn't run over him, thankfully, but the
Man.
wind was so strong it pulled him into it and he bounced off of it. um, it was when Hurricane Helene came through, so it rained
Yeah.
the entire time.
You had a
My whole
pretty
plan was to change shoes and change socks. That was in the plan from the get go. Like, yeah, no big deal. Um,
You really make me want to do this.
it did not matter. I literally I changed my shoes and socks. I'm like, nothing better than having wet feet for 116 miles on a
Ugh.
bike to then putting on dry shoes. You're just like, okay, that's a win. This feels great. Like my feet are dry. It wasn't even the first mile they were wet again. And
of a marathon.
yeah, of a marathon.
Yeah, for those that don't know, yeah, once 116 miles on the bike, and then a marathon after that.
Well,
So
it just shows like you talk about you didn't get started riding trials till you're 19. Like it really takes some mental focus. It takes some strength there, and the focus on the training. And obviously, you do that for a triathlon. It's something that you don't just wake up. If I want to do next year's Ironman, I'm not ready. Like I'm already behind.
You can't
So
prepare enough for an Ironman.
yeah, and that just
I
shows
thought I
like
was, but I wasn't.
even from a skill standpoint with the trials, like there's a place where we can all start, we can learn something and grow as riders.
Yeah.
Um, and you're going to grow really fast at the very beginning,
Yes.
but you have to keep that diligence. And if I remember correctly, you had it was either right, I think it was right before we did the event in Chickamauga. You had just gotten back from Africa,
Yeah.
and then you had done you had like done some triathlon related thing right before that.
I don't remember so Africa was 4 months after my ACL. My first
didn't you do an
triathlon was
Xterra or something?
yeah, Xterra. That was after Africa though. That was and then after I did the Xterra one, I was like, oh, let's try
This
Ironman.
is a
Why not?
great idea.
That's a logical
Yeah,
leap.
But
yeah.
my point is that I've seen you go through these grueling things and just having the mental capacity to the mental fortitude to be able to persevere through all of it and I don't know, just focus. Is there a lot of focus involved in that?
I was born very stubborn. My mom said I was a hard kid to raise, but I've been a great adult. So, you know, it that's always been there with me my whole life. It's just kind of one of those like, I've always been able to like zero in and be like, okay, this is where I need to work on, and this is what I need to do to get better. And I will stubbornly attack it until it. I may not. It's kind of one of those like when I go to nationals, you can tell the kids that have been riding since they were like kids. When you watch them, it's pretty. When I watch videos of myself, I'm like, oh my god, that's so ugly. Can we turn that off? Like, because it. But I get through it. I feel like I think that's why people love watching like me at shows and stuff because it's like, oh, that is hard. When you watch like Pat Smodgy, it's just like, oh, wow, that's beautiful to watch. He's got a pretty style.
Watching the indoor trial is amazing to me because you have
Beautiful
these
to
people just
watch.
jumping 6 feet in the air off of nothing.
And it's easy looking at. They make it look
Yeah.
effortless. Like when I watch it, you watch my face, I'm like just straining at the bars and everything like that. I have to fight for everything I've got, and they just
You see, there's that one video out there where this guy's just jumping from obstacle to obstacle, his bars break in the middle of it. Like that
it
just shows
happens.
how much pressure you're putting on the bars, and this guy just has nothing to hold on to at that point.
My a really good friend of mine, the one from South Africa I went to ride with, his brother. It was actually here at the Chattanooga Hooters. They were doing a stunt show there, and they were jumping over Hooter girls, and it was like, let's add one more, let's add one more, and I'll do that in a show. I think the most I've jumped is 6 in one
Yeah.
of my shows. They were doing like 10, 11. They were getting
Yeah.
like I think they were going for a record or something. After a certain point, I'm like, no, this isn't safe. But they're a lot better. They're
And the good
phenomenal.
news is, like, I've been hit by a tire
Doesn't
when
hurt, does
you
it?
or somebody else, I can't remember. It was either you or Alex had jumped over me. And yeah, it doesn't hurt. It's
No.
you're talking about 5 pounds of pressure,
Mhm.
and it's just
I think I did that in the Chickamauga show. I had you laid down
You
and I
got
rolled
me.
over your legs.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
you got me after jumping over. I was last in line.
That's
which
why
is
you
where
put somebody
normally.
you really like at the beginning of the pile and the end of the pile.
Yeah, yeah. So
You
yeah,
get people from the audience, but you put them in the middle.
I got in a lot of trouble as a kid for jumping over my little brother on a bicycle. So
there's.
I got scolded for that one.
But did he die?
No, he didn't. He survived.
It's funny.
But I was smart enough to record it, and that's how
Oh.
mom found out about it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
documented
can't
it.
record those things.
Yeah.
You can't record those
Well,
things.
we had to have proof. Yeah.
Well,
We were making our version of Jackass back in the day.
Mom, no one got hurt.
No one got hurt.
It's weird though. Like
My mom's a
if,
nurse.
if
so
somebody
that's-
else is last in line when Alan's jumping on, I never hear the motors pull up. But then when I'm last in line, he always just whacks the throttle while he's in there, so that if he does get me, it.
Trying to.
Yeah,
It's
well,
really
at
spun
least you
up.
clear me quicker
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
way.
you
right?
know.
Yeah,
just wear your helmet next time.
it's not. Yeah, it's always my
Stomach, legs,
stomach
no.
or thighs or something that.
I don't know how we're doing on time. I didn't look at my watch whenever we
I
started.
think we've got like 10 minutes left.
minutes. Okay. Yeah. Where else do we want to go?
Spectators.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about that before, and I think from a you go to hair scramble like obviously a supercross, motocross, it's really spectator friendly.
Yeah.
But you go to a hair scramble and it's a 8, 10, 12 mile
2
loop.
seconds.
And you're watching one section.
Yeah, every 45 minutes.
Unless you're hiking the whole
unless you're
day.
bouncing back
Yeah.
and forth, every 45 minutes you see whoever you're looking for.
Even
And
like
that's
TKO. You find the one hard spot. You stay
everybody
there all
stays
day,
there.
but it's a
all
10-mile
day.
race.
Yeah, they stay in
So
the
you don't-
creek or
But
whatever.
if you're there with a racer and you're wanting to watch them,
Right.
it's really hard.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
the
And then you go to the next section, and you're like, okay,
they'll be here.
where you at?
Yeah, and you
Did you
really
hit a tree?
where are they? You really don't know. But yeah, with the trials events, maybe not at Trials Training Center like at a night because it gets pretty big. I mean, if
It
it's
does, but there's still a lot close to the pits. Usually half the
Yeah,
sections are within walking distance.
but like
mine's
your place, you can be from the furthest two sections apart from each other in
mile.
in 15 minutes.
Mhm.
Not even getting in a hurry. So,
It is very spectator
yeah,
friendly.
point being, like, look at the calendars, look at the events pages, and go to
free for
one and check
spectators.
it out. Yeah.
I think the nationals sometimes they charge for spectators, but the locals it's always free for spectators.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially and even my house on Thursday night. If you don't want to commit to riding, come watch.
And you're probably not going to be expected to catch any bikes like you are at a hair scramble.
We
or hill climb.
we specifically have people for that. They're
There you
called
go.
minders. You know, they ride with you to the sections, and they're the only person that's supposed to touch your bike, and only when you're crashing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we talked about like how little space it takes. What is how big is your property?
Mine's only 25 acres,
Yeah.
so it really goes to show you can put a lot in a little area.
I'm really amazed that your 25 acres it's packed in there. Like I don't expect to see that 25 acres there. If you
Yeah.
were
It's out
located,
in-
yeah.
yeah.
Subdivisions on all sides.
Yeah, subdivisions on
Dad
all
wouldn't
sides.
sell the
You
farm.
got a
Exactly.
Yeah.
Publix right behind you.
Yes, I love that on on
Yeah,
Thursday
I'm
nights when
sure.
we don't have enough burgers. All right, let me run to Publix real quick.
Yeah, so yours is actually way too much space. Like as far as you don't need all that space to do a trials
I'm
event.
glad I have it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Gives you a little
need it-
buffer.
Mhm.
If anything, you need it for parking. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
which
takes
we
up
have.
more space in
We
the
have about a half-acre field to park in,
yeah.
and I've came close a couple times. Some of y'all's demo days, we came close to filling it up, but
Yeah.
most of the time it's
How many sections have you got? I mean, I know it
Right.
varies, but eight or 10?
oh no, I've
Have you got more than that?
because we on a typical trial we'll do 9 sections a day for 2 days, and so that's 18 right there.
Yeah.
Because we never use the same sections 2 days in a row. I'd say we probably have 30 to 40.
Okay. Yeah.
We add 2 or 3 a year. We're getting close to having, like, all the fun, usable stuff. We've got some topography at my house. I've got some hills and stuff. There's flat spots in the woods that we've kinda looked at, and they're like, "I could do stuff there, it'd just be a lot of work, and we've got 30, 40 awesome sections. Let's ride." So, I always joke about it. I'm like, "I think by the day I die, I'll have my entire property as just one big section where you can go one into the under." I'll be too old to enjoy it, but
But it's really cool that you are open to having people out there. Just like Seth, up on the mountain.
lucky
It's
to have it. I
great.
wanna share it,
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the cool things about the trials community is everybody is willing to share. We talked about that earlier. So
We want it to grow,
just
we want it
take
to
advantage of it. Yeah.
But that brings up so the reason I was talking about that is that if I get one of these enduro bikes out here right now, you're like you were saying, I have to have acres to ride it on.
Yeah.
If I get a motocross bike, I have to
find a
you know,
track,
find a
which
track,
are fewer and further
Which
between
is
nowadays.
really hard to do in
drive
Chattanooga.
Yeah.
for me an hour, drive an hour to that track, and have everything with me, obviously.
The one day a week that they're open, hopefully
The one day a
you're
week
free
they're
that
open.
day.
If they might be practicing on Thursday night, they might be racing on Saturday. They may have a practice on Sunday. I think Calhoun had a practice all day Sunday this week. Um, so you're trying to like schedule around them. With trials, it's a completely different thing. Like you're talking about your early days, you just got a few tires, tractor tires.
Mhm.
I have 2 acres at my house. I could get a couple tractor
Could set
tires
you
in the
half a
back.
dozen sections up over at your house, no
Yeah,
problem.
yeah, absolutely.
Your neighbors may not like you, but
Well, I mean,
They
like
don't
you
now.
said, it's
It's
not.
They already don't like him. It's all
My
right.
neighbors
call it
love me.
groundskeeping.
My neighbor's building a new bridge for me. He has a bridge going over his creek, and he was tearing it down the other day. And he said, his wife was asking, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm building a new bridge so Jeff can get over here." And he said, "She goes, what about me?" He goes, "What about you?"
That's a no-brainer.
But anyway, you're
I
talking about your neighbors liking you. It's not even noisy. Like it's not a
it's not.
problem. I have neighbors. I have a neighbor that's a customer of ours, and he wants to come over and ride. Like, let's do it.
The thing I'll say about trials, like honestly, I can't think of one motorsport that's cheaper than trials. Like, you look at it and it's like, yeah, like if you come to the showroom here and pick up one of these gases, yeah, it is an expensive purchase. If you've got that kind of wallet, you should. I mean,
Yeah.
they're great bikes, but you can also get into the used market. You can get bikes cheaper than 2,000. I don't recommend it. I think I'd get one that's 2,000. Probably buy it from an old man, not a young kid. Because old
Yeah.
men are, especially in the trials community, you're probably going to get some guy that probably changed the oil every time he rode. Like it. But
And it comes with a notebook.
yeah, this is my service
Yeah.
records.
Yeah.
But no, but like $2,000, and then the biggest thing I recommend is an open face helmet. Those closed face helmets, they really affect your riding. So you can
No.
pick those up for like $100, maybe. And then boots. I have friends that they've come and rode with me, and they do motocross boots, and they get trials boots on. I mean, you've ridden both
Mm-hmm.
instantly. Like you're
It's
probably going to
night
progress
and day.
10%.
Yeah.
Instantly.
What's the difference in trials boot?
They're a lot less stiff. So motocross boots,
Yeah.
they're made to where when you wreck, your ankle doesn't
Yeah.
flop around. Well, on a trials bike, you need to be able to control that brake. You need to have the ankle speed to move, to work the bike the way it needs to work. Here we go. We got a demo here. You can
Okay.
see it's
I mean, just they
So it's closer to my like adventure boots.
yeah, and I actually wear these sometimes
Yeah,
as
same.
adventure boots.
I
Yeah.
do as well.
So yeah, I mean it's
I've worn 'em hiking. They're pretty comfortable.
yeah.
Hiking. Wow.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot better than motocross
I've
boots.
got I've got the Forma Adventure. Is that like something that would?
I'm not familiar with the boot, but I'm sure an adventure boot would definitely be better than
It's,
That would
it's like
get
an
you by.
ADV boot to
Yeah.
get you by.
You started on adventure boots, I think, when
I
the
did.
first time
Yeah,
you came
I did.
riding with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So yeah, if
Yeah.
you're
I've-
really
I've
wanting to
got
save cash,
motocross boots. I hate wearing motocross
they're
boots.
so stiff.
That's
Well,
the worst part of riding a dirt bike.
You have no
Ride
feel. Yeah, you really need to be able to feel the pegs in the rear brake and like on
I
a
started on work boots.
on a motocross bike, your ankle bones, if you will, are always against the frame, and on a trials bike,
Outside,
it's out so that you can
work the bike.
manipulate the bike underneath you. But
But
as
all that
far
to say, you can get in this for $2,000. What other motorsport
sure,
can you
yeah,
do that?
right,
There is. I can't think of one.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
Well, I want to say, like, if you want to learn how to static balance a bike, we can help you here.
Absolutely.
If you want to learn how to ride a trials bike, Alan can help you. If you want to take it a step further, do a day at the Trials Training Center.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get into competitions, there's stuff locally that's happening. More and more is happening as the sport does grow in our community, and I think it is. I think I've seen that upward trajectory. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to get into it.
yeah. Just like anything with motorcycles, you like use us, leverage us. Yeah, we're here. That's what we do. That's what we love doing. That's what we make a living doing because we love doing it. So stop in the store and say hi and ask questions and yeah, go to Allen's
Throw a
on
leg
Thursday
over one of these
nights and
things.
yeah,
Thursday nights. That's what we're there for.
yeah.
Or do you call it throwing a leg over or stepping through?
I think I've always heard throwing a leg over
Is
even
that
on
okay?
trials. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
think it
feels like it's
applies.
more just a.
It is just a little step.
Yeah.
It's not like one of these big bikes where you
The
can't touch
throw
the
the
ground.
throw is less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little throw.
So
That's
crazy.
why the older guys do it.
Yeah. They can actually still get on it.
I don't have that hip mobility
Yeah,
anymore.
those old guys will embarrass you if you're not careful. Yeah.
I've been embarrassed by a lot of old guys on 2 wheels.
You're talking about you don't have to spend $10,000-$11,000 on a brand new 300 GP. Obviously, that's the most expensive one we have.
Right.
I have a guy that's coming Saturday, and he is expecting to buy this as his first trials bike. And I more power to him. I encourage it. He says, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to be all in.
You
So,
will notice a difference, especially me. Like like when you get to the higher levels, you do notice the difference. But for somebody who's never ridden, um, just getting that first bike is important because it kind of tells you what you like, what you don't like. You may want to try some brands. I've ridden Gas for 15 years. I'm always going to plug Gas. I love them. I don't. None of the other bikes feel as good to me, but that's personal
Yeah.
preference. A lot of my friends that are better than me ride other bikes, so it's
and if you're talking about like we obviously have the Ossets here now. If we're talking about getting kids into it, like a lot of people
so easy.
I have a kid that's 7. I have a choice right now. Am I going to get him into motocross? Am I going to get him into enduro riding? Or am I going to get him into this? If you're one of the parents who's afraid your kid's going to hurt himself,
Listen, Mom, he's going
get
to be
on
going
this.
3 miles an hour.
Like, this isn't going to hurt him at all. And he's going to learn some valuable skills that
Slower
keep
than
him
a
from getting hurt
than a bicycle.
later in life.
The
And you-
only injuries I've ever seen in trials are always at the top level or somebody doing something stupid. One of our pro riders broke his clavicle on the loop. It wasn't in a section. It wasn't run. He was hot dogging on the loop and went over the bars and went in the woods, and hit a tree. And it's like
And that's
Sure
the
you have
tree's
a lot
fault.
less
That's
problems with
exactly.
riding, though.
They do jump out in front of you. At speed. I don't know.
But no, it's we have a youth program. That's another thing I should plug here is Randy Sharp. He's in our club. He's got the Mark Moon Youth Program.
Oh, wow.
Phenomenal. They have a ton of these little Ossets. Anybody that wants to get their kid on a bike, they'll do it. But I'll tell you that to say that he's been doing that for about 10 years, and I've never seen a kid get more than maybe like a scrape or a bruise, and that's building character. They learn something,
Yeah.
Never, not once have I seen a broken bone or, anything like that.
And just because you go buy an Osset and it's fashioned after a trials bike doesn't mean you have to ride it.
No.
Like you can just ride
Plus, I
around in
could
the
sit on it
backyard
more than I
Yeah.
stand on
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Maybe once you get to the bigger
Yeah.
one, the 24, but the 12s, the 16, I mean, you don't necessarily have to use them as a trials bike. It's just a great learning tool, kind of like a Stasic or a Strider or whatever
It's
is
a
a
gateway drug.
tool. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah,
A lot better than the gateway drugs they're going to give you if your kid's not into something.
yeah.
My mom used to always say, "Hey, get your kids into motorsports. They won't be able to afford drugs."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Don't need
that's
'em.
right.
But
It's when people ask me why I don't drink. It's like,
yeah,
I have motorcycles.
Yeah,
I have another habit. It's
Yeah.
more expensive.
yeah.
as we kind of come to a close, y'all have anything else we want to rabbit trail off on? We have follow us on Facebook. We have the new Pandora's European Motorsports customers group on Facebook. So if you're not part of that, go ahead and join that. That's kind of where we're going to share like rides that are going on and things like that. This will not quite make our March 8th ride because we're going to publish after that. Not ride, sorry, the BDR movie presentation. We do have a ride going on at the end of March. Just riding out to March Moto Madness. For those who want to go out and participate, they do have a gate fee. I think it's $60. So if you're going out there and you want to spend some time there, great. Otherwise, I'm coming right back to the shop. You could ride with me, but so you could join us there. Otherwise, just follow the podcast here, Throttle Stop Moto Podcast on YouTube. It's also on Spotify, and Apple, and all of the.
We're on
other
TikTok
places.
now, aren't we?
We're on TikTok. Yeah, they got
Are
the
we?
TikTok
Yeah.
videos. Yeah.
Jeff got us a TikTok
I feel like
going.
I should have known.
Yeah, we have a
that.
TikTok. Sorry.
You'll wake up one of these days and you'll have all kind of text messages.
Yeah,
We'll have one video that
Man,
goes viral.
I feel like I'm going to be TikTok
TikTok's
famous
hard,
in
though,
bad
like-
ways,
Yes.
inappropriate
is hard.
ways. Yeah,
Look at this idiot on the
I
podcast.
get,
right.
I
Yeah,
get-
yeah.
I'm calling you out, TikTok. I get videos uploaded and I get one view on it, and then I get other ones that are 800, 900 view, and I don't views. I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
There's some kind of algorithm we don't
Yeah,
understand.
they don't like how I'm uploading it. Like it's seriously that simple. But anyway, I'll let you close us out.
All right, guys. You want to shout out your Facebook page one more time for people?
Yes. So I'll shout out a few. The Mark Moon Youth Trial. They're on Facebook. If you got kids, they'll get you in. The Chattanooga Trials Club. We won't turn away kids. The Mark Moon Trials part of ours, but we love y'all to come Thursday nights, ride with us. Just hit us up. And then I'll plug my stunt team on the Edge 2 Will action shows. We're fully insured and everything now, and we're operating in the Chattanooga area, but we'll do wherever y'all want us to go. So give us a shout out there, and yeah,
Awesome.
that's all that I got.
All right, we'll let you join in on the sign off. So thanks for joining us again on the Throttle Stop Moto Podcast. I'm Justin.
I'm Alan.
Matt.
See you.
Thanks.
Y'all.